On today's show, Captain Marvel welcomes some old friends, Al Capone gets ink done, and Carmen Sandiego has a live-action movie. Could Oregon Trail be next? Movie Talk starts right now. You guys remember Oregon Trail?
I want an Oregon Trail movie.
Is that lost on the younger viewers?
Is that the one with Chris Farley?
You have died of dysentery.
Oh, yeah.
You were thinking of
You
Wagons
lost 30
East?
oxen.
Yeah.
I lost a lot of oxen, killed a lot of bears, and saved a lot of bullets. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Collider Movie Talk alongside T, Mark Reilly, and Kristian Harloff. I am Mark Ellis, and on today's show, we're going to kick off with Captain Marvel, but before we kick off with that, we have a pregame, and that would be breaking news that is the release date shuffle game for X-Men Flicks continues. X-Men Dark Phoenix, originally scheduled for November 2nd of this very year, has been pushed back to a February 14th release date. If that sounds interesting, it might be because New Mutants, which was originally supposed to come out around now, was pushed back to February 19th of next year. So now that movie has been pushed back even further to August 2nd of 2019. In the November 2nd release date of this year for 20th Century Fox is going to be a movie that's pushed up. That would be Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, the Freddie Mercury biopic. That was originally scheduled for Christmas Day, pushed up to November 2nd. So it's a whole lot of shuffling going on right around here, Riley. And as you told me this news last night, I started to get really nervous. Oh no, what's happened to X-Men? Is this guy falling? I don't believe this guy is falling. There's been a whole lot of jargoning on social media this morning saying, oh, well, this means this or this means that. Could this be that Disney is potentially going to acquire Fox and that they're trying to save one of these movies for Disney? Or does this simply mean that we need to do some reshoots on Dark Phoenix? That's what I tend to believe, is that we got to do some reshoots on Dark Phoenix. That scheduling can be a little bit of a conflict because Sophie Turner is currently shooting a little HBO show called Game of Thrones, so she's not immediately available. So that's going to push back the release of Dark Phoenix. That is going to push back the release of New Mutants. I think this is all as well, and we just need to do some reshoots. Do you differ with my take?
I differ a bit. I found it interesting that in the cover of Darkness, Fox dropped this news. It was at like 10 o'clock at night last night, and that normally doesn't happen.
They're like, oh, good night, everybody.
Yeah. It's like all of a sudden it's like, see you in the morning. And you're like, wait a minute, why did they move back? Some of them make perfect sense. I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody moving back a month to November 2nd through the director shuffle just gives me good signs that it's on track and we're getting in early. Great. Dark Phoenix, all the things you brought up, Sophie Turner being a part of Game of Thrones, she might not be able to do the reshoots. February is a good month now, as we've seen with Deadpool and Black Panther. New Mutants, though, this is the second date. Okay, I smell something fishy with this one.
Did you have a trailer for it already?
We got a trailer for it, and it was supposed to be April. It was supposed to be next month.
We got a trailer for it. There were test screenings, and people liked the movie, but they wanted to add more of a horror element to it, which
That's
is
what
why
the reshoots.
Initial reshoots were. At least that's the public reason they gave. Again, you can't open two movies that are huge comic book extravaganzas from Fox within a week of each other. So New Mutants would have to move back a little bit. Now, August is a long time to move back, T. Do you think that August is just a better landing spot for more of a horror-based movie? Or do you think that they're actually afraid and need to reshoot more stuff?
I'm not really sure how to take it because I feel like it is quite a push. It's a pretty big push in terms of the timeline, and maybe they are just trying to play better to that typically being a better time of year for a horror movie release. Or maybe they are actually just trying to make the movie as good as it can be. I'm trying to be cautiously optimistic here. And to be honest, superhero movies, not really my cup of tea. I'm definitely more excited about Bohemian Rhapsody coming out earlier because I'm way more curious about that than either of these two films. However, I do kind of want to tentatively give them the benefit of the doubt. Reshoots are such a dirty word, but generally the studios build in reshoots to their schedules these days anyway. I mean, even with World War Z, which infamously had tons and tons of reshoots and everyone was thinking the worst, and then the movie ended up being kind of decent. So we'll see what happens here.
I think one can consider Freddie Mercury a superhero in his own right. So, Kristian, this morning, even our own Frosty from Collider.com had mentioned that he's got some insider info as to maybe why some of these release days have been shuffled, and that there's going to be a Collider news vid later up today starring Frosty giving his take. You've seen a lot of takes on the internet this morning on your way in. Which side do you tend to believe?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I believe any of them yet. There's theories you kind of latch on to more than others, and I think that as I like to do, relate some things to the Schmodown. So I then turned to the reigning team champion of the world, Jeff Snyder, and he tweeted something out that I think is interesting, and he thinks that it's probably not going to happen. We probably won't see New Mutants until the Disney streaming comes out.
You think they're saving it for the Disney streaming
Do
service?
I think that? That's what he thinks. I think it's a good take. I just think that that you can argue against it because that it looks like they were going for a rated R horror movie. Maybe they were going for PG-13. I don't know, but it doesn't. Who knows what the programming slate will look like on Disney and what they're going to be approaching. So far, that what we know is the live-action Lady the Tramp, the Star Wars show. But the Star Wars show is probably going to range into PG-13. So if New Mutants ranges into the PG-13, then maybe he's absolutely right. Maybe they are maybe that's where it lands. As far as the X-Men, Dark Phoenix. That to me is that there's no fear there for me. As far as reshoots go, I think T hit the nail on the head. As we know, there are always reshoots built into contracts. Now, sometimes, like for example, World War Z, that should have been gone horribly wrong, but they just utilized it the right way. Look, Rogue One did it. It's a matter of utilization and how they make it happen. So sometimes reshoots happen and it's absolutely terrible. Fantastic Four. It's just a matter of when, how much, and who's doing the reshoots. But we'll see. I mean.
Well, with reshoots, I mean, like you take a situation like what we had on the Han Solo movie where Michael Kenneth Williams was in the movie and then could not make the reshoots, or at least that's the reason that we were given that, this actor's working another project. He had a great time on the set, but he's not available for reshoots. You can't have that happen in a world where Sophie Turner is your lead. So I don't know what the contract looks like. I don't know if Fox is trying to negotiate with HBO right now, being like, hey, is there any way that like Wednesdays from 7 to 9 p.m. we could just have her be on set? They want to get these reshoots done as quickly as possible. But the February release date, to me, seems like a better landing spot for Dark Phoenix than November did, when it's less competitive as far as that style of movie. The Bohemian Rhapsody movie is going to be a singular event that comes out, as opposed to like How the Grinch Stole Christmas or your Harry Potter Fantastic Beasts movie that's also coming out in November.
It also gives it a leg up on if you're going for Oscars and stuff too, because if you land in November and maybe
that's
it starts,
a sweet spot.
Yeah, it's a sweet spot. It starts to be the conversation, and you're going to look at performances, and obviously with the director shuffle and all these different things, that the story is something that everyone's been intrigued by. Because I'm with you, out of all this is the one that I really want to see the most. I want to see how they bring Freddie Mercury alive on stage there again, and how they tell the story. I'm very curious, and because there was also what are they going to do? Like, are they going to show everything about it? I mean, because there was the big report is that the band wanted to tell one particular story, and we'll see. But moving into November themselves, that's a good date. So
I think the band just wanted to make sure they were in it too, because they are like Brian May is one of the best guitar players that ever lived. They're a great band, in addition to Freddie Mercury being the greatest frontman of all time.
If Kevin Dillon can play Densmore, then they can make it in.
John Densmore, a vital member of the Doors.
Nice.
They're a great
Doors
band as well.
reference.
So New Mutants, I don't think it's going to be on the. I don't think they're saving it for the Disney streaming service just yet. If that release date gets pushed again, then I think you or Snyder might be onto something, because I know Snyder loves having these kind of claims, and a lot of times they do come up being true. This one, it's hard for me to believe that by August, Disney would have everything in line with that 18-month waiting period that you have to have when you acquire a company of the magnitude of 20th Century Fox. If it gets pushed back again, you could see a Disney streaming service launching with Lady and the Tramp, a Star Wars show, and New Mutants. Well, we're going to have a movie in theaters next year that's going to be shortly after Dark Phoenix, unless it gets pushed again, and that would be in April, when we get to see the release of Captain Marvel. The movie has officially started shooting on the West Coast primarily, starring obviously Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. We also have word that some old members of some casts are going to be returning. That would be Agent Coulson's own Gregg is going to be back, as well as Djimon Hounsou and Lee Pace. They're going to be playing Ronan and one of the other Kree members. What's the guy's name? It's like Klaus or something like that? Korath. Close enough. It's on a different planet. I tried to make him German.
Klaus.
So we have a lot of
Klaus
people
is
returning
here.
this, and I would suspect that Gregg is going to be one of the members, because the movie does take place in the 90s, and Samuel L. Jackson, we had already gotten confirmation that he's going to be back. Kristian, does hearing that these new cast members are in the movie do anything to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that here's what Marvel has already done and has continued to do is that aging process, the Benjamin Button, as they say. And I guess this is a little bit of a spoiler, so if you guys want to throw that up, throw the spoiler up. It's
You've seen Captain Marvel?
not Captain Marvel. I watched Blade Runner 2049 last night,
Okay.
and there's a particular scene. I won't say what it is, but they use the aging.
Oh, I know you're,
technology.
yeah.
The de-aging or
The
the
de-aging,
aging?
excuse me,
Yeah.
the de-aging, and it was the best I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The best I've ever seen. And
Well, I'm glad that you're not complaining about Blade Runner 2049 anymore as far as
see?
Schmodown goes. Yeah.
Well, listen, if I wish I would have gotten that question now. I've seen the film. But anyway, point is that they should do that with, well, they don't necessarily need to do it with Ronan, but they should do it with Clark Gregg. I think that, and Samuel L. Jackson. And not dramatically, just a couple things here and there, because that's what if they have that type of technology and they want to perfect it and keep it going. That's what I want to see. But as far as story-wise go, it makes sense. It makes sense to the involvement. How much of it? What is Coulson's role at the time? Is he an intern? Like what's going on at that point? And with Ronan, yeah, I actually think this is a mulligan for him, because the character was crap in the last one. It was just, it could have been good in Guardians, but it just wasn't. So let's see, maybe give him a little bit more to do, because Lee Pace is awesome.
It's a whole lot of setup, though. I mean, if this movie starts out taking place on Earth and we're following the adventures of Carol Danvers, and then all of a sudden we got to go intergalactic with two different alien races, that Earth is going to get wedged in between there. Plus, we have maybe the baby formation of some sort of team like S.H.I.E.L.D. with Samuel L. Jackson and Clark Gregg. That's a whole lot of stuff to cram into what amounts to be an origin story for this character.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious to see the prequel aspect more than anything, because I don't think, unless it was made in the 90s, we haven't seen any Marvel movies set in the 90s, so it should be pretty interesting. And yeah, I definitely am curious to see how Brie Larson fits into this world, because I feel like this is quite a departure for her in terms of the roles we typically see her in. So yeah, I think the casting is on point, and yeah, we'll wait and see.
Riley, Marvel making a big deal about, hey, we're starting production on this, and it is interesting that they're shooting on the West Coast. I think a lot of that is because there's a lot of military bases around here. I think that they were shooting, or at least doing some pre-production on a Nevada Air Force base, as opposed to Marvel's usual shooting hub, which is Atlanta.
Yeah.
I think that Marvel's saying, hey, now we started shooting. What does that do to everybody who clearly saw those images of Captain Marvel in the suit a few months ago? Does that mean, I saw this speculated on Heroes last week, that could have been a post-credit scene for Infinity War?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Everybody started speculating on that, because it's the green suit, not her usual red, blue, and yellow suit. So I'm not familiar too much with the comics, but everybody said that was her first suit. So we're probably going to get that origin story tied in. What I'm excited about is what other MCU characters might show up as maybe Easter eggs, or that we haven't heard that they're holding back. And also, what does it mean, the Skrull Kree War? These Skrulls are shapeshifters, so they might reveal something that will set up Avengers 4, that some of our Avengers might have been Skrulls the entire time. That's what they did in the comics that I loved. So the prequel aspect of this, bringing in more MCU characters, they could just change up everything in the MCU. That's what I get from this article, and why I'm excited.
So it
juicy.
could come out,
Yeah.
like one of the superheroes that we know and love, we thought was human, is now a Skrull.
He's been a Skrull the
a
entire
long
time,
con.
or she. It's the long con, which they did in the comics, and I loved. And like Secret Wars, Secret Invasion, these are some of the comics lines that they can jump into and potentially reset everything, and that's...
We got to try something, because I mean, once we get to a place we hope we get with Infinity War, then it's going to be after those two movies, or even after the first one. It's like, well, what's next? And if they can switch that up, because also by throwing it in the 90s, it's like, well, how's that going to impact everything? Doing something like that, or something, it's going to have more involvement than we are anticipating, for sure.
Yeah, and let's remember the fact, like, when you go to outer space and you have an adventure out there, it can feel like it took a couple weeks.
Have you
then
been?
You come back to Earth. The last time I went to space, felt like 2 weeks. I came back, I was 15 years older. It's crazy. The world has changed.
Amazing.
Nuts.
I was wondering.
So just remember, everybody, time in outer space very different than time on here.
You're a Skrull.
Look, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying what race I am.
I saw that little flash in the eyes.
I'm saying that no human being is as good as Tetris as I should be. First look
That's
at
true.
Tom Hardy is our next story, and that would be Tom Hardy in Josh Trank's Al Capone movie called Fonzo. This takes place a later part of Al Capone's life, when he was going through some signs of dementia, so he has a lot of violent flashbacks as to what his previous life was. That is Tom Hardy as Al Capone. A lot of people are mentioning and want to remind everyone that this is kind of a rough picture at first because you see him clearly dressed as Al Capone, but you still have Tom Hardy's tattoos in the shot. Now, I don't think they're going to give Al Capone Tom Hardy's tattoos, so you might even cover those up in post or with additional makeup or what have you. But just looking at Tom Hardy as Al Capone, T, does this show you more about what Tom Hardy can do as Al Capone, or that Josh Trank is a director who's going to get back on course with this project?
I think I have more faith in Hardy than I do in Trank, to be perfectly honest, because I love Tom Hardy. I'm pretty much on board for anything he does. And it's funny, when I first saw that photo, I was just like, I didn't realize Al Capone had such sweet tats.
Yeah.
Clearly, I don't know my history. Thanks for clearing that up.
He might have. I mean, he might just like, once you go to prison, people tend to get tattoos.
Yeah, you know, it's just like, oh, nice. Nice ink. But yeah, I'm very excited for it because, I don't know, I feel like even if the movie isn't that great, Tom Hardy will be able to elevate it. He did another gangster movie where he played twins. I forget the name of it.
Yeah.
That's right. And I didn't care for the movie, but I love Tom Hardy in it. So it would be great if we get both, but I'm going to see it either way.
Yeah, I mean, I could even see like his character in Locke, who by all accounts seemed like a pretty good dude, but just the way he's negotiating when he's in the car the entire time and he's having a conversation with it, whether it's his lady friend or his business partner, just seems like he's just got that mobster angle where he can get a deal done. This is something that's going to take it to the next level, Reilly, because he's somebody who is not only has that in his past, but he's also going through something that is mentally, eventually it's going to have that effect on him where he's going to be incapacitated.
Yeah, the take on Al Capone is what gets me excited, and with Tom Hardy doing it, because he's a fantastic actor. And to have an Al Capone that's suffering dementia and like reliving his life, and so we might get flashbacks. That's an interesting story for me, and I think a great way for Trank to get back on track because, yeah, he the Fantastic Four debacle, it happens. And it happened. And now the fact he got Tom Hardy, a heavyweight like Tom Hardy, who can inhabit this role and disappear, I believe, is a great sign for Trank. He's got an A-lister in here. Get back on track. Do a great, small, intimate movie that is based on a true story. I love this. And yeah, the tattoos. I mean, Al Capone, he created the sleeve tattoo, so we're going to get in there, I'm sure.
He's getting ink done. He's pretty fly for a white guy. Kristian, the way I want to take this with you is, I mean, obviously I know you're a big fan of Tom Hardy. Josh Trank, like Reilly and T said, getting his career back on track. Is this the way to do it, where you had that debacle and you kind of go underground for a little bit and you just focus on this project and you take your time with it?
Hollywood is harsh when you fail. It is forgiving when you succeed. Mm-hmm. And that is what is happening with Josh Trank. And I had the pleasure of talking to Josh Trank during all the Fantastic Four stuff. Like, he watches Movie Talk and he reached out.
And it was right after he was announced as not doing a Star Wars movie, too, right?
It was around the same time, but it was right. There was like the weekend. I talked to him the weekend before Fantastic Four came out. He had tweeted that thing out. It went bad for him when he tweeted the thing out.
Oh, that's right.
Then I talked to him right afterwards, too, and we talked for a while. He told me about the fact he was working on a gangster movie. And when he was talking about it, I was like, this, you could hear the passion in his voice. You could hear him talking about, I didn't know it was Capone at the time. He just said wanted to do this gangster film. This is the type of movie. I actually do have a lot of confidence in him, Josh Trank, for this movie. I think it's fair to say I don't really know what Trank's going to do here, because when you look at the Fantastic Four and you hear everything from the media, but you look at the smaller scale movies, the things that he's done, look at Chronicle, when he's able to do things of that nature, he delivers. And I also think he's not going to have a lot of hands in the pot. He's one of those guys that he needs to be focused on, and this is going to be a problem maybe down the line if he does another big blockbuster movie, but focusing on this one, I think he's going to deliver. I think he's going to deliver, and he's also got the right vessel in Tom Hardy to do it. Now, the Al Capone thing, as far as that goes, if you look, I mean, Trank's sitting in the back with him, and there's Tom Hardy. I think that's just like an audition thing, obviously, because of the tats and everything else, unless it says enthusiasms. But other than that, I think that you need to darkest hour this thing a little bit too, because he looks nothing like Al Capone. Maybe, you put a little stuff on him. I don't know what they're going to do with him, especially when he's in prison. I mean, that's when he really let himself go. Yeah. So I think that Tom Hardy is the perfect person to play Al Capone. He can get to that vicious anger. We've seen him do it many times before. And then Trank, I'm rooting for Trank. I'm rooting for him, and I'm hoping that, because also I like a good gangster film, and I Untouchables, I still think, even though it was a bit cartoony with the way De Niro played Capone, I love it. and I want to see this version of it. So sign me up. I'm ready for both Trank and Hardy to bring Capone to life.
Movie's got a pretty impressive cast on its own right. I mean, Linda Cardellini's also in it. Matt Dillon, the brother of John Densmore's Kevin Dillon, Kyle MacLachlan also in the movie. So it looks like a pretty good cast, and there's no release date that's been set for it, but that is your first official look.
We just know the studio isn't Fox.
we know the studio is not Fox. Josh Trank is directing the upcoming Al Capone biopic, Fonzo. Our next story is about that AllSpark Pictures that we had heard so much about. Hasbro trying to develop a live-action shared universe for all of their cool toy properties, and we might have a new movie to fit into that place. That would be written by Zach Penn, who just came off of Ready Player One in the movie, you guessed it, Rom the Space Knight. Sound familiar?
We got
an actual
Kristian to do
spit
a
take.
spit take.
spit take.
It's one of the
Well
hardest-
done.
one of
You
the
guessed it, got me.
best compliments you can pay a comedian
Is a
got it
spit
on my
take.
is to give
You just
them
made his day.
a spit take.
It was the you guessed it. It was the you guessed it.
Rom the Space Knight. I mean, who doesn't know Rom the Space Knight? So,
I don't.
Rom the Space Knight is apparently it was a toy that came out in the late 70s, early 80s. I missed that window, but it was pretty popular, or at least enough to turn into a Marvel comic in the 80s. And so who Rom the Space Knight is, Kristian, in case you were wondering, is he's kind of this intergalactic cyborg that has origins on a utopian society, but it all goes to hell when they just get locked into this never-ending battle against the dire wraiths. So there's going to be conflict in here. And right now, the Hasbro team, Paramount, has a untitled movie set for release in 2021, which is probably going to be when this movie gets released. The interesting thing here is that Hasbro and Paramount had a writer's room that they got everybody together. They got a bunch of great minds in there to come up with where they wanted to take the shared universe for AllSpark Pictures. This is different than that writer's room that we heard about that had Zach Penn in it and Stephen DeKnight, our guest from last week. And then Michael Bay kind of came in and said, I don't want to really do any of that stuff. I want to make Transformers The Last Night. This is a different writer's room. Zach Penn was not in that writer's room. However, a lot of people were speculating that they came up with the plotline for this movie in said writer's room. Zach Penn might have seen it and then signed on. Mark Reilly, is that the tea leaves that you're reading as well?
Yeah, that's what I read. That sounds fun. I'm just
Rom the Space Knight.
I look at AllSpark in general, and they're trying to. Who knows what's happening with Transformers? There's a untitled date later down the line, like 2021 or something, where there's speculation they're going to reboot the Transformers franchise. We'll see what happens with Bumblebee, the standalone. That I have a lot more excitement for because of Travis Knight, because of his Kubo and the Two Strings. That's a fantastic movie. To have him to do Bumblebee, we're going to get something different. I know nothing about ROM. I would much rather have Zach Penn go finish that Matrix script he's working on and get one of those movies, because the shared universe of ROM, I do not remember this character whatsoever. You're going to try to shoehorn it in with G.I. Joe and Transformers if they reboot it. That's a universe that it doesn't get me excited like a Marvel, a DC, a Star Wars. That's for sure. But you say Mask, you get a Mask movie going, I'm in. That's what I want to see.
I'd be totally in for a Mask movie.
Mask is the greatest toy line that had me with the nostalgia feels when I read some of the earlier, or some of the report was like, yeah, I think they're looking at Mask. And maybe they can get G.I. Joe, because G.I. Joe's got to be rebooted too, right? So this is just a bunch of movies right now happening that just doesn't have a shape or form to it either. Zach Penn is a great writer, so I'm looking for if he can mine that mythology and make sense of it, because when I was doing these show notes, I was like, what is this thing? I don't remember it. It didn't hit me as a kid. Did it hit you?
If I could channel Michael Rappaport for a second. What the fuck is this?
Yeah, you say it.
So the thing is, I actually feel the opposite, to be honest with you. I think that that when you put these things together with Zach Penn, you don't have Michael Bay attached to any of this stuff, right? He's out of the picture. This to me is more exciting, because I don't necessarily just need Star Wars or Marvel to be the shared universe. I want to see them put together stories. I always think it's risky for them to say, hey, we're doing a shared universe, especially with characters we don't know. It's like, take your time. It's like, let's get one that works, then tease them, then start teasing it, and then put it all together. That, to me, is a better way to do it. Now, is this thing going to be on Netflix or is it on?
No,
No, I mean
theaters.
these are going to be.
It's
It's going to be produced by Paramount, so you never know. They might make it and sell it to Netflix, like what they did with Cloverfield.
Right, yeah.
But,
But
this is not. They're not making a Rom the Space Knight shared universe. They're saying that Rom the Space Knight could factor
fit
into
it. Right.
Transformers or GI Joe that everybody knows.
Starting with Rom, I mean, look, when you see the tin can with laser eyes, you say, well, "What the hell is that thing?" But you also you could say that with a lot of these movies that you didn't know and understand. And if it's set up the right way, I never discount a movie just because A, I never heard about it, or B, I don't know what it's about. If Travis Knight is involved with it, right, and these other stories start to make sense, and I see a trailer that I go, well, you know what? Ron the Space Knight looks pretty good. It could sound ridiculous. You put Bay attached to it, and then you put, another Merlin cracking jokes, and I'm out. But if you treat it in a way that I'm going to care, anything can work. I'm telling you, any movie, anything can work if it's put together the right way. I always discount people when they say things like, oh, nobody wants to see that. We tried that and it didn't work. No, you tried it with the wrong people. If you try anything can work if it's done correctly. Now, that's easier said than done. But this is a particular thing that let's see what happens. I like the team. It could stink to high heaven, but it could also be pretty awesome.
Well, I mean, given Christian's spit take, T, I think it belies the fact that he is one of these people who's always on the soapbox of saying we want more original sci-fi fantasy movies out there. Rom the Space Knight, it seems to be more of an unknown property, so it could be one of those. Is it almost unfair to try to wedge it into a huge universe, or do you think that's the only possible landing spot for a movie like Rom the Space Knight?
It seems to me that the studio is hedging a bit. With this being a lesser known or in a lot of cases completely unknown property, they're like, we're going to work it in with that thing you already like. But I, for one, am kind of bolstered by the fact that this is a more unknown property, because when you have the studios taking super well-known things, Superman, Batman, and so on, the stakes are so high and they tend to kind of coast on that name already being so known. And I feel like they're going to have to work harder with this because people don't know it. They're actually forced to create a good story to get asses in those seats. And I think it could be better. It's almost kind of similar to the first Iron Man film. I mean, I would say this character is even less known, but people thought Iron Man was just an Ozzy song when that movie was first coming out. Like, they didn't know, a lot of people didn't know about that comic character. And I think it kind of forced the filmmakers and forced the cast to create something great. So maybe we'll see that happen here.
I mean, my guess is that they try to relaunch this entire universe with a G.I. Joe movie. You're going to have that Bumblebee flick come out, and that's going to be whatever it is, and maybe they drop little hints as to what's to come. But I think G.I. Joe is the proper way to set it up, because it does give you a little bit of space and time between this Michael Bay Transformers franchise we had. You relaunch G.I. Joe, you let the audience be aware that not only do you have to deal with Cobra, but you might have some interstellar implications, and that the Joes are the only force on Earth that can handle it. And then when you have your Micronauts come in, your Rom the Space Knights or your Transformers, it makes a little more sense.
Yes, as far as storytelling goes, but as far as marketing and as far as proven box office, you probably want to go with Transformers. And I know what you're saying as far as, because we're going to have Bumblebee and then it's going to be a jump like 2 years or 3 years, and people are like, yeah, we just had one. Well, the same could be said for Homecoming when they got rid of singing the same song. It's just all on how it's executed, because if you execute it the right way, right, say Transformers, the reboot, and you have it the way that it was actually set up in the 80s, and not this, you focus on the actual Transformers themselves. Launch this thing, because then that's what you launch with the intergalactic.
Do you think it'd be too much of a panic for them to put to have a G.I. Joe movie come out in, say, 2020, and then we have Transformers in that movie and we're fighting each other already? Do you think that becomes a Batman v Superman situation where we kind of rush multiple franchises into one movie?
I think you start with give it a little bit of a break. Talk about your relaunch a lot. Let people know. Let shows like this talk about it. Start making a plan. You can announce G.I. Joe reboot and Transformers reboot and when they're going to be coming out and get people excited for it, and space them out a little bit, because then if you have, 2020 is when the next Transformers comes out, the new one, the version that a lot of us fans are hoping we get. And then in 2022, G.I. Joe comes out, or even 21, whatever. Then they both work. They both are approached differently. Then you're like, well, guess what? In 2024, 2025, it's G.I. Joe and Transformers. And then Rom's going to come in and have a cup of coffee with them. Whatever it's going to be. It's like, that's when you start. It's maneuvering. And again, easier said than done. And it's a reason why Marvel has been able to do it so well, and other people have just not been able to get the formula yet. Not saying it can't happen, but it's harder.
But I think they're doing the G.I. Joe route what Ellis alluded to,
that what
because
they announced?
they announced a G.I. Joe date and just G.I. Joe as a title. So that sounds like a reboot. There's still no Transformers, reboot or otherwise, dated.
But if Bumblebee does really well,
But if Bumblebee does well,
they
right.
want to tease.
So I could maybe see them rebooting the universe, the Allspark universe, doing G.I. Joe, kind of more grounded, and then either Rom the Space Ghost or whatever the hell his name is comes in.
He's a Space Knight, Mark Reilly.
Space Knight comes in, and then that opens the universe, and then we reboot Transformers. They come in, but I'm with you. We're Transformers nostalgia guys. We love the original
But
movie.
G.I. Joe, though, I guess I'm just nervous about G.I. Joe because if they went,
Yes.
Marvel ran G.I. Joe, a good comic line in the 80s that was fantastic. Like the first 100 issues were great, and they really focused on Storm Shadow, Snake Eyes, their relationship. There was none of that in the new one. I mean, there was not the way that it was in the comics.
You had a couple great scenes of the rivalry, but
it wasn't just a rivalry. They had a real brothership, a brotherhood. There was something about the two of them. There was more to it. There was a lot. I mean, Storm Shadow. There was more to him, and Destro and Cobra Commander. The stuff that they were going through. There was those storylines. They should take those stories the same way that Marvel has done with comics for the MCU and infuse them into these movies because they're great stories. And people like me will remember them, but a lot of people don't remember the G.I. Joe comics from the mid 80s. There's some great stuff, and it was hardcore. There was a lot of death in that stuff too. It's a good series if you can find them.
T, were you familiar with any of the G.I. Joes growing up, or is it all Klingon language to you?
No, I mean, I definitely played with my brother's G.I. Joes for sure, and watched the after-school cartoon, which they would always have those kind of survival tips at the end that were never applicable to real-life situations. Just like, here's what you do if you're in quicksand. It's just like, this is not going to happen.
You've seen the pork chop sandwiches one before, right?
I don't think so.
Oh, when this is over, I got to show
The
you.
pork chop sandwiches.
Have you guys seen it?
It's
No,
one of the
I'm
know
sure
that.
I have, but I
great
forget.
things that you'll ever see
Ever.
on
Ever.
YouTube. I can totally sympathize with a older sister stealing
Pork chop
G.I.
sandwiches.
Joes. Xantar got really lucky on more than one occasion with a Barbie, not because of me. Our next story involves a property some more people may be familiar with than Rom the Space Knight, and that is Carmen Sandiego. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Well, she's going to land on Netflix, and she's going to be played by Gina Rodriguez in a new live-action movie to accompany the new animated series. Like we said, it's going to be on Netflix is where this is landing. My big question is, look, first of all, I'm really excited about this. I think it's a long time overdue. It's great to see Gina Rodriguez playing the role of Carmen Sandiego. It's a feature film, and I get that. Doesn't Carmen Sandiego on Netflix lend itself more to a series where she could go to a number of different places and have multiple adventures? If it's going to be a live-action movie, fine. Just be prepared because I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy this. So it's going to be a series of live-action movies. Hopefully, they can get Gina Rodriguez to commit to multiple movies because I think you can definitely have a franchise here. This report comes courtesy of Deadline T. Carmen Sandiego, she usually ended up in Rio de Janeiro when I was looking for her on my computer game. Where is she going to be ending up at the end of this movie?
I have no idea. And I do agree. It's interesting that they went the live action feature route because we've had the game show, of course, from back in the day. And then we had the animated series. But yeah, live action feature seems a little strange just because it just seems like a story that would continue rather than something that would be self-contained within one movie. So perhaps she'll be in Rio de Janeiro. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe Stockholm.
Stockholm is a good place for her to end up. It's going to be produced through Gina Rodriguez's production company called I Can and I Will, alongside Kevin Misher and Caroline Fraser. Kristian, like we said, it's an extension of the brand that they're kind of rebooting this whole Carmen Sandiego thing with an animated show now with this. Looking good for you?
Yeah, I actually think that the feature film is actually the route to go because they're doing the animated series, and then because Gina Rodriguez is producing this, she's done a TV series. She's been in TV, and she probably doesn't want to commit herself to another TV series. And the fact that she's producing it, I think that you guys are right to where it can continue on. I think there could be a series of movies, and what they probably said in the room, as smart as opposed to what we were just talking about, is let's see how this one does. Let's see if people care, and then we have more adventures that we can set up and that we can do. And I think she's great. I think that everything that she's in, she's just really. I liked her in Annihilation, but I really liked her in Deepwater Horizon. And I think that she and by the way, they keep she's around that rumor mill for Star Wars. She keeps going around, and whether or not she's going to land there, we don't know yet. But this is a good, smart move for her, because it's also, we talk about it all the time with the evolution of an actor in order to keep succeeding in this business, is that you don't just take gigs that you audition for. You start, if you get to a certain status, start producing your own stuff. Start producing things that you're passionate about. She's passionate about this. Do it and let's see what happens.
Yeah, well, I like how Carmen Sandiego doesn't really play by anybody else's rules. I like that Gina Rodriguez is taking her career into her own hands. She already won a Golden Globe for Jane the Virgin. It's great to see a person of color, particularly a woman of color, get a role like this. It's going to be so high profile because, like we said, Riley, animated series, now live action movie, Netflix, a book series to coincide in 2019. I don't read a lot of books, but I'm definitely going to be watching this movie. How do you feel?
Yeah, I look at Netflix more than anything for the movie, because Netflix is they're making such big moves all over the place. We have Martin Scorsese's The Irishman. We have the extreme shared universe of superhero movies from Rob Liefeld. Now you have this. The reason they're doing a movie, I think they really want a franchise. I think they're trying to make franchises, and Bright is getting there. It didn't get critically beloved, and it got skewered. It's not a bad movie, but so they're making Bright too. But I look at all the other things that they have going on. Carmen Sandiego, the movie, if it hits and it looks like it will, this is their franchise, and they want that. And then to have the nice synergy with the animated show, with her voicing the character, this is a great play. I think it's smart to do the movie, to see if it lands, get that franchise, and they're off and running. Then they can continue to develop these things. Because the Cloverfield Paradox, whoo boy, that was stinky. That was an awful, awful movie. That was another go at a franchise. So they haven't quite gotten there yet, but they're making these big plays. This might be the one that really hits.
It might be the one that really hits for Carmen Sandiego. We move on quickly to our last story of the day before we take your live Twitter questions, and that is that Steven Spielberg is insisting that Tintin 2 is not dead just yet. In a quote that he recently gave, he said that Peter Jackson is going to be working on the second part. It's going to take a couple years to get the animation work on the film. I wouldn't expect to see it released for another 3 years, but Peter will stick with it. Tintin is not dead. Tintin was a really enjoyable adventure movie when I saw it. It actually surprised me how much I liked it. It felt a lot like an Indiana Jones movie, a lot more so than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull did anyway. Only did $77 million domestically, but it ended up making around $377 worldwide against a budget of about $125 million. Two huge names, Peter Jackson, Steven Spielberg. If they really want to get something made, they're going to, even with their busy schedules. Tintin. Is it something that we need? Is it something that Peter Jackson, do you think, is going to get done? Or do you think this is just kind of something that we always talk about and never end up paying off?
I don't know. Is this Steven Spielberg's Bad Boys 3 and he's the Martin Lawrence? I don't think so. I feel like if they want to get something done, they will. I am definitely part of why the first film didn't do amazingly, because I don't care at all. Didn't see it. Don't care about a Tintin 2, although it is fun to say Tintin 2.
Tintin 2.
Tintin 2. I don't care. I mean, make the movie. Who cares? Whatever. Do what you want.
If a lot of people compared the way I look to the main character, would that sell you on the movie at all? Just a little Mark Ellis, little animated Mark Ellis running around there having adventures with his dog, Kristian?
But you should see the movie.
You're a good friend.
I love this movie.
Wow.
I loved Tintin. I wanted, when we were doing the top 10 Spielberg movies right now, I was the only person to put it in the top 10 because a lot of people had not seen it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I think that's the problem. I think that when you saw the animation, I think that a lot of people felt, I don't really care about this movie, because you're not the only one. I've heard many people say that seems to be the popular opinion, is I don't care. But you're surprised when you see it, because Spielberg directed the first one. Andy Serkis does it again in this movie.
Yeah.
And what the plan was supposed to be was Peter Jackson does the second one, Andy Serkis does the third one, as far as directing goes. And then I think that'll happen even more if this Peter Jackson thing happens. And then Jungle Book hits. Andy Serkis's Jungle Book hits, and then that does well, then we'll definitely see Andy Serkis direct. But I love Tintin. I love the score. I liked the idea. It is absolutely the Indiana Jones that we wanted. And I think I saw it twice in the theater when it came out also.
Wow.
The music alone is worth going to see it again.
It's
I mean,
great.
John Williams did the
Lot
score.
of Van
Yeah,
Halen?
the movie is really good, and I think it's because it had that Polar Express kind of animation, and people and the Polar Express when that came out, people weren't ready for that, and the way that it kind of came out, our eyes weren't trained for it, but I really, really think Tintin is an underrated movie. I am excited that Spielberg says that it's going to happen. I am the only one.
It would come out a full decade after the first one was released, Riley.
Wow.
So just from a business standpoint, even if you have a name like Peter Jackson and Steven Spielberg and Andy Serkis attached, is this the right environment to bring it out? I mean, people are putting a lot more stock in worldwide box office, and the worldwide box office is now able to get a movie greenlit in a way it wasn't when the first Tintin came out, although it was very successful internationally. Would we see the same thing with this one?
I don't know. I think it's too late, to be honest with you. I do like the movie. I think it's a great movie, but it didn't get me like it got you, Kristian. So then you look at how much it made domestically and even worldwide. I don't find the worldwide total to be like shocking. I find it to be like, oh. So when you then add in 10 years later, the trinity of Spielberg, Jackson, and Serkis didn't necessarily work the first time, so I don't see it working the second time. It's becoming a long time between these two. I'll wait and see. Like, I don't think there's an audience clamoring for this. I think there's one person clamoring for this, and he's sitting next to me.
I mean, he really wants this.
I do.
Yeah,
but
and
I
I respect
also
that.
But I also understand that I am in the
The one
minority.
person, yeah.
But the thing is, I think that if it came out, you obviously would see it because
Of course.
Spielberg,
It's
as
everybody
far as
that I love.
produced. But I think that what it is getting people like T to see the first one. It's people who don't care, because even when I was like, listen, it's good, she went, eh.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just
Take
not
your
a
word
sell.
for it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Are you saying that the
Just like-
character's resemblance to me is actually hurting its chances? Of being made?
No, I think that you're adorable.
Thank you very much. Maybe it'll be adorable on a streaming service coming your way, because 2021 it's a long way off, but it's closer than you think. And look, they're not going to put $125 million into this movie, but if they were able to get it off the ground, even if Peter Jackson says, "Hey, I'm shepherding this young director that I think that I really like, and we're going to let him do Tintin," because Peter Jackson is going to be fairly busy with the Mortal Engines franchise he's trying to get off the ground. That comes out at the end of this year. So Tintin 2, I don't think it's dead. I don't think Peter Jackson's going to be directing it. I don't think Spielberg's going to be directing it. I don't think Andy Serkis is going to be directing it. They're going to get somebody new, somebody fresh to come in and direct it, and it might be something you see in a streaming service rather than in movie theaters. Later on today, we have an all-new Schmodown that's going to be dropping. Make sure you guys check out John Schnepp hosting an all-new Heroes that went up yesterday, as well as tomorrow and Jedi Council on Thursday. Kristian, what's the latest in the world of the Schmodown?
It's the live Schmodown. So everybody who's been asking whether or not we were going to put the live Schmodown up on YouTube, well, yes, we are. 2 parts. You're going to get the Wild Berries and Real Rejects today at 2 p.m. and then on Friday, Roca and JTE. I know a lot of you guys wanted to be there, couldn't be there. Watch this one, because this is something that we want to do more of, and we want to see the responses from those of you who were not there. And those of you who were there, drop the comments in there. Tell them what it was like.
We're going to save some time at the end of this show for you live Twitter questions. Go ahead and start tweeting us right now at Collider Video. Use the hashtag Collider Movie Talk. Riley, you were able to do a commentary for The Last Jedi that's going to be up soon, and actually our Justice League commentary just dropped, so we're back on the commentary track. How was watching The Last Jedi and actually having a talk about it for you?
I had a blast with The Last Jedi, and I had a blast with Justice League as well. We went deep with Justice League, talking about what I definitely liked, but the stuff I really didn't like. But I was offering like, man, I wish they did this. I wish they did this. So that was really fun. I got really sweaty, to use John Schnepp's term, comic book wise, bringing up some comic book references and whatnot. But The Last Jedi was a good one. I was with this guy. You know, he knows Star Wars.
I haven't caught the Justice League reaction you guys have done yet. If you did not grow out your mustache for that, I'm going to consider it
Grow out
an
my
epic
beard.
disappointment.
But we did digitally remove
he
it.
shaved his face for the whole thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
grew
was
back
all
last night.
Yeah, this was all digital. This is digital right now. I'm not even here. I'm a hologram.
Number
Roca.
9 of Steven Spielberg's top 10 is now up on the channel. It dropped this morning. Yesterday, we dropped number 10. We are going to continue to have a new Steven Spielberg vid drop each and every weekday around these parts. And also follow us on Instagram and participate in our Thursday show called Caption This. Christopher Woodburn kicks us off with the live Twitter questions today. And he says, when do you think we're going to get a teaser for the Halloween reboot that comes out around Halloween. Mark Reilly, I go to you, our horror expert.
Yeah, I'm going to say we're going to get something probably in, I would say, June as we kick off the summer. No, as we're in the summer movie season, we'll get some kind of tease that is going to remind you that it's coming out in Halloween. And oh boy, I can't wait for that movie.
I can't wait for the trailer.
Blumhouse behind Halloween. I mean, this is the greatest thing for a horror lover like me.
Yeah, I think regardless of how good the movie ends up being, I think the trailer is going to be great. I think they're going to, because John Carpenter's back and he's producing it.
He's doing the music, man.
Because
that
he's doing
music's going to play.
You're going to hear it in the trailer.
You're going to lose your mind.
Are you excited about the trailer for Halloween?
I am, because I feel like they almost don't even have to do much. I think any horror fan is so excited that, like, we'll just take anything we can get. You can just give us like the smallest little taste of what's to come. And I do agree, it's probably going to drop around summer, just based off of my hunch.
Yeah, Kristian, what's your hunch tell you as far as when you should drop a Halloween trailer?
The same. I think June would be because you're going to get all the summer movies that are coming out that they're going to be we're going to be full swing. But if you drop that teaser trailer in June and get people talking about it, and like, oh, just see Carpenter's back, Jamie Lee Curtis, all this stuff is happening again. Yeah. And it's also one of those things. I was very excited when Blomkamp said that he was going to do basically retconning Alien 3 and up to take place right after Aliens, because I wanted to see somebody do something like that. And then to see this happening with Halloween, it gets me excited to figure out exactly how that's going to work. And I think they're going to do that with Terminator. Great. But I think June is when the teaser hits, and I think we get the full trailer in August once it starts to die down.
I know when. It's the first Purge from Blumhouse is going to drop sometime in the middle of July. That might be the first big trailer that we see attached.
It might be the second big trailer.
I'm going teaser, you know.
I think you'll see a tease before then, because our crack research team named Tintin just did some research, and I looked up the first It trailer, and it came out 11 months ago, which I believe would put it sometime in April, or is when we got that trailer for a September release. So could be seeing that Halloween trailer any day now. Jay Calloway finishes us off today, and he has an interesting question. What's the best marathon you've done of non-related films? So you can't do like, oh, I watched all the Marvel movies in a row, I watched all the Star Wars movies in a row. Do you ever go to the movies and see multiple in a day, or you're just sitting at home, nothing to do, just drinking a hot toddy, and you have multiple flicks you're watching that are non-related? For Jay Calloway, he watched Moon, then followed by Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, then Snowpiercer.
Oh, those are three good ones. Very, similar in kind of, I guess, tone. You feel the same way after watching all three of those movies, kind of. Eternal Sunshine. I don't know. It's been so long since I've been able to do that. I mean, it took me 3 days to watch Blade Runner because my kid wakes up every 45 minutes. So
you finished watching Blade Runner before 2049.
I was very impressed. It's a 3-hour movie, but it took me a while.
You like it?
I did like it.
Yeah,
I did like it. I want to go back and watch the first one again. But anyway, the point is that I don't remember.
Does not remember a time before he had children. There's yearbook pictures that indicate otherwise. Mark Reilly, you got a good movie marathon? It's got to be unrelated films.
I mean, they're related. The only thing that popped in my mind was when I first started dating my girlfriend, she hadn't seen any gangster movies, so we did a Godfather, Goodfellas, and Casino.
Oh, that's good.
All on a Sunday. And that, I know they're related. They're all mob movies, and you can say, look, Scorsese directed 2 out of 3 of those. But it was the classic gangster movies, and she's like, I've never seen them. And then a week later, we watched Godfather 2. So, yeah, related, but that's the best binge session I can remember.
That's a pretty solid binge session. Both of theirs involve some sort of relationship or children, T. Do you prefer to do it with someone else, or do you prefer to have a marathon of unrelated movies by your lonesome?
There's definitely sort of the period where you have to indoctrinate your significant other, like, this is who I am.
That's what that was, T.
Yeah. And I think that for me was True Lies, obviously.
Oh, nice.
Because shockingly, he had not seen it. Half Nelson, because I think it was new to Netflix, and I was just like, I haven't seen this in so long, and I love this movie. We're watching this now. And probably The Wire front to back the
Oh, so
entire
good.
series. So that took a little bit longer than a day. But
Where do you
it's
stand on
def-
season 2? Are you a fan of season 2?
I am a fan of
love
season
season
2.
2.
It's not my favorite season. I've got a friend who insists it's his favorite season, but he likes to be contrary.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have problems. I know it's not TV talk. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, to quote my favorite show, Family Guy of all time, Breaking Bad is the best show ever, except perhaps The Wire, which I have not seen. I just got to take a weekend when I'm on the road somewhere and just go through The Wire.
You're
You
going
say
to need
stick
more
with
than a
season 2.
weekend. It's dense.
I really like season 2. People didn't like it as much as the doc season, as they call it. I thought it was
Yeah.
great.
All
Your
right.
boy Pablo.
Pablo Schreiber.
There you go.
Yeah, big fan of
There you
his.
go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of the cast that I've seen that was in The Wire. I'm just very lazy. However, when I was a youth, I would go to the movies quite often from time to time. And one time, my family, we all went to see a double feature at the AMC in Newport News at Patrick Henry Mall. The kids saw Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. The adults saw Dead Poets Society. And then we met afterwards to all go see Ghostbusters 2 together.
Nice.
So there you go. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and Ghostbusters 2. Pretty much everything you need to know about Mark Ellis is somewhere in those 2 movies. Thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Collider Movie Talk. We'll be back with a fresh edition tomorrow at 9 a.m. for T. Mark Reilly and Kristian Harloff, the whole gang. I am Mark Ellis at Mark Ellis Live. See y'all tomorrow. Hey everybody, Mark Ellis here. Thanks for watching this episode of Collider Movie Talk. You want to watch more? Then click up here, or you can click right here for more great content from Collider. And if you haven't subscribed to Collider Video, do so right now and share this vid with your friends. Thanks for watching.